Okay.
Hey Celtic fans, welcome back to another edition of the Celtics Talk Radio video chat here on YouTube.com and of course the Zoom meeting app. So today we are discussing the Celtics and Toronto matchup, a preview in this case. Our Boston Celtics took care of business, Igor, with a 4-0 series sweep over the Philadelphia 76ers, winning this past Sunday by a final score of 110 to 106 in Game 4 to officially send the 76ers home for the season. With, of course, a big performance by Kemba Walker, scoring 32 points in that game. Jayson Tatum added 28 points playing 40 minutes. Jaylen Brown scored 16 with 41 minutes. That game, Igor, was pretty much the biggest test so far during this series, I guess you can say, during the series the Celtics had, as again, Philadelphia was playing for its playoff lives. The storyline with head coach Brett Brown pretty much knowing that if he didn't win, then basically his career in Philadelphia was over. And sure enough, it took less than 24 hours after the final result of that game for the Philadelphia 76ers to fire Brett Brown. So he is now looking for a new job. However, the Philadelphia 76ers have announced that there's going to be some more um, other things that are going to take place with the team itself, possibly some things being done in the front office, could be some changes on the roster. So it looks like Brett Brown is not going to be the only victim, thanks to what the Celtics managed to do here in round one. So now the Celtics are slated to start taking on the Toronto Raptors in round two. In this case, the Toronto Raptors ended up eliminating the Brooklyn Nets also by a 4-0 sweep. So the only series, Igor, as we also know, the Miami Heat swept the Indiana Pacers 4-0. So the only series left in the Eastern Conference that actually is still going, shockingly, is the Milwaukee Bucks and Orlando Magic series. In this case, with the Milwaukee Bucks now holding a 3-1 series lead. So, Igor, our schedule as of right now for the Toronto series has the Celtics taking on the Raptors in Game 1 Thursday, August 27th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. That's the only game that has actually been given a time slot. They will play Game 2 on Saturday, August 29th. Game 3 will take place Monday, August 31st. Game 4 will be Wednesday, September 2nd. Game 5, if needed, will take place Friday, September 4th. Game 6, Sunday, September 6th, again if needed. And then if it has to go the distance to Game 7, that will take place Tuesday, September 8th. So, Igor, I think you could say, for you and me, we pretty much expected, once we found out Ben Simmons went down with an injury, that this Celtic team was going to get past the Philadelphia 76ers. Only question was, how many games was it going to take? You and me said 4 or 5 games. We didn't see it going really the distance because Joel Embiid was completely outnumbered, 3 stars to 1. People can basically talk about, the money and all that guys like Harris and Horford make in this situation. But really, there's only 2 stars on that 76ers team. And when you get rid of one, the other one pretty much has no chance against a team like the Boston Celtics with 3 stars in this case. However, now, Igor, Toronto is a totally different story in this situation. And this is where we'll find out truly if our players are really worth the money they're demanding this summer in this case, and if all the hype over getting rid of the guys we had last season to go with this youth movement really was worth the risk. So, Igor, what's your opening thoughts?
Nothing. Great job about Celtics. Great job from our Celtics with Philadelphia. I'm not too interested to talk about Philadelphia because you know everybody everybody's um, everybody know everything about Philadelphia series. Everybody is of opinion what's wrong with Philadelphia. We know Charles Barkley, the trade rumors. I will add on to your opening thoughts that Elton Brand, their GM, could be fired also and should be fired also because it's his responsibility, right? Philadelphia just look disaster, and Brett Brown is fired. Um, I mean, Brett Brown should be fired, of course, because he absolutely didn't do anything in this series, didn't make adjustments, didn't coach the team, and Elton Brand and the front office turned around the whole team that lost from the Celtics in the playoffs 4-1, and that team actually new team lost 4-0. Now, big disclaimer is that Simmons was out and Robinson III was out. But again, I mean, there is no excuses for Philadelphia. I mean, like you said, pretty much well. The Celtics had practically four players that can score you 17 and more points per game, and the offense is just overwhelming. Philadelphia defense played well. What was problem, Daniel, without Simmons? Or it is hard to say that Simmons was missed in offense, but what's better to say is that they miss another scorer. Why? Because Embiid dominated us in the paint. That is our problem. That's what we said. That's what we have been afraid of. Okay. So practically, what was their problem? Enough points. Josh Richardson didn't do his job as second scorer behind Embiid, Tobias Harris, pardon, at the first place. Tobias Harris didn't do his job as the second best player on that second scorer, to say. He should be the second scorer on that team. Josh Richardson third and Al Horford fourth. Everybody except Simon and everybody else just failed. Of course, you cannot expect from their bench. Alec Burks was solid couple of games from the bench. In one game, he scored like 22 points. I can praise that player, but everybody else just dark gray. And Philadelphia is going home, and they will rethink the process. And we're going on to the Eastern Conference semifinals. And before we start talking about Eastern Conference semifinals, I have two information. First, Gordon Hayward will miss this series because of injury and because he left the bubble. He will return when he's ready. Javonte Green will miss the new injury report, which is certainly not good. And this is not as devastating as the loss of top four players like Gordon Hayward. Um, Gordon Hayward was practically the fourth option in this Celtics team. Number one, Tatum. Number two, Brown. Number three, Walker. And number four, Hayward. This is the way it should be. Javonte Green out 2 and 3 weeks after the procedure to repair small meniscal tear. We certainly didn't hope that Javonte Green will play. Javonte Green will play at all, but this is certainly not a good story, Daniel. What is the biggest unknown? What is the biggest unknown here is the health of Kyle Lowry. Now, why this is important? Because this is the game changer for me. I don't know, maybe you will disagree, but if the best player of the opponent team, and that is Kyle Lowry, is not ready for the games 1 and 2, this is a big game changer. And to confirm our thoughts, Daniel, I will quote when I find it, and I found it. Jared Weiss, great athletic, who was the guest on our show before? Jared Weiss. He said, "The suspense is insane here. No Kyle Lowry would even up this matchup on the paper again, because let's say this way: the Celtics won the season series 3-1. I think when everybody is healthy, that the Celtics should pull it off and win it in 7 with Gordon Hayward. But because we don't have Hayward, I think that Raptors are favorites and they should win in 6 or 7 if the Raptors are complete. Now, totally agree with Jared Weiss, but if Kyle Lowry is out, now this is 50-50 again. Raptor star Kyle Lowry has been diagnosed with left ankle sprain, and status will be updated later. But we have the new article on, if I'm correct, NBA.com. Former Toronto Raptors Alvin Williams said 99.9% sure Kyle Lowry will be ready to play in the game 1. He said that Kyle Lowry is a warrior and he will battle to play in this game. Now, further from Jared Weiss, one fan, and um, this is just proof how this man, I will not name him, it's not important, that wrote to Jared Weiss, is the perfect example how shallow the Celtics fans are and how biased they are. Majority of them, not all of them, of course. You and I are the example, and our team, of the Celtics fans that are as objective as we can be. We love our Boston, but we're not homers. When we talk hoops, they can't match up with Kemba, Brown, and Tatum. Healthy Hayward would make it easier, but Celtics win this series. Jared Weiss answered, "Sir, you do know that the Raptors, they have the second best defense in the league, right? They have Laurie, Van Vliet, OG, Anunoby, and Siakam. They match up better with the Celtics than any other team in the league except Milwaukee." In another words, he said that the worst favorite, the worst matchup for the Celtics right now uh, is Giannis Antetokounmpo and his Bucks. And the second worst matchup on the second worst matchup for this team are Toronto Raptors. And Daniel, if you think very clear, and we will explore that informations and thought, I think that Mr. Jared Weiss is very right. I have one more thought before giving word to you, and I have questions for you to elaborate me. Um, Kate Smith, NBA insider from Celtics blog, just talked to NBA assistant coach, and he said it is important for Boston to get game 1. Toronto might be a little stunned at how much defense they can see with Boston compared to the Nets, the ghost defense they just played in 4 games. Boston could jump them because of their defense in game 1. Philly played okay defensively. It was their offense that was problem all the series. And even when Philly was bad, it was better than no defense that Brooklyn played against Toronto. I don't know how does it really matter with 3 days off, but this is just interesting note. In other words, Daniel, this man is saying that the Celtics had a tougher opponent and the Celtics offense played against better defense, because Philadelphia played solid defense according to this person, and on the other side, um, Nets didn't play this. They allowed 150 points. I mean, this is Perfect example how you are not playing the defense at all. So Daniel, in another words, this person, GM, I mean, emphasized the importance of game one. According to him, the one who team that wins game one will dictate the rest of the series, and especially for Boston, this is important because they are underdogs on this series. Uh, Number three, Toronto number two, defending champs. Uh, Now, the chances that Boston is having in game one and the series depends on Kyle Lowry. Now, if NBA.com is correct, if Kyle Lowry is ready for the game one, that is giving Toronto the edge in the game one and the whole series. Like I said, if Kyle Lowry is not there, Boston can grab the game one and can dictate the series. What do you think about Kyle Lowry? Do you feel that he will play even on one leg or not in that game? I have that feeling.
Well, I think we'll definitely see him in game one. Unlike Gordon Hayward in this situation, his injury or his sprain was a grade 3 in this case. Which is a pretty severe one. You saw how he really couldn't put much weight and all that on the foot in this case. Lowry, when you look at him, he didn't really seem to have much of a problem. He was still able to walk for the most part. Obviously he didn't continue the game, but he was able to walk. So I think after basically having what technically would be 4 days off at this point, Monday, Tuesday,
4 days.
in this case, yeah,
4 days.
having almost 4 days off, there should be no problem for Kyle Lowry when it comes to basically being ready for that game in this situation in game one. Now, obviously, it's going to be something people will be keeping an eye on because the fact that you already heard it means that it's more likely that you can hurt it again. It's already weakened, as they say. So if you re-aggravate it, it can make it only worse. So I won't be surprised if maybe he'll at least start the game in this situation. And if for whatever reason he doesn't feel right or they're realizing that, he doesn't look right, then they'll probably take him out and say, okay, let's stop and basically let him sit, let him skip game one and give him the next, day or two off before game two starts in this case. But I agree in this case.
Yeah, one note, Daniel. If Kyle Lowry is out, we can see Norman Powell, their guard, to start, and we can see Terence Davis, Matt Jones from the bench, and maybe even Kyle Lowry from bench. That's possibility in the one, right?
Well, yeah, even that could be a possibility. But I agree that getting game one is going to be critical in this situation because, for one, the
Yes.
Celtics don't know basically how things will go in game two in terms of Lowry's injury in this situation. For all you know, Lowry could feel better come game two compared to game one. Us, on the other hand, we already know who we're gonna have. We already know who's gonna play and who isn't in this situation. So I feel we need to see something done that's basically gonna allow the Celtics to take advantage and really, set the tone in this case. Unfortunately, like I said, having 3 stars is not going to be enough in this series because you got plenty of stars on the Toronto side to match up in this case. You need a good performance from the Boston bench, a good performance from Tice in game one to set the tone, and at the same time, let the Toronto team realize you're not going to have it as easy by just focusing on Tatum, Brown, and Kemba because the rest of us are ready to basically bring our A game. That's going to be critical in this situation. You lose game one, Igor, and you make it where basically and it's because the bench doesn't show up. That's only going to make it more harder for Tatum, Brown, and Kemba come game two.
Excellent stuff. And let's start with the series preview. Excellent text. I must applaud to our friend, guest in the last show, again, Daniel. Everybody should check the show number 265, if I'm correct, and it's doing great, by the way, with Mr. Gelso. Gelso is the big, great man, and we want to really thank him again. But Andy Vernon did a great job in the second and third hour of our show, Daniel. What he wrote and what is totally accurate based on statistics. Looking ahead of Toronto and why the Celtics might miss Gordon Hayward, as Boston Celtics fans put away their brooms, or in my case, mailed my broom to Philly-based friend, we need to start looking ahead to Toronto. Superficially, this is a matchup that benefits Boston. Boston won the season series handily, 3-1 winning. Kemba Walker is such a good Raptor slayer. They need to send him to Jurassic Park. However, I think there is a lot more to this matchup. The Gordon Hayward factor. Gordon Hayward played all four games that we played in regular season against Toronto, +1 in the bubble, and we won. The blowout win in the bubble. His numbers of Gordon Hayward didn't make wow of you. He was only 15 points in the first match of the year. However, he was well in the bubble, 17 points per game, if I'm correct. 5-6 assists, one of the best assistant in the team, and he contributed in every single category, which is valuable, especially in rebounding. He was also great rebounder, and he made us all forget about Al Horford when he was playing power forward in that starting unit. Now, moreover, Hayward was efficient. Daniel, nobody's talking about. Everybody's talking like, oh, Kemba Walker scored 22 points. But how many shoots did he take to score 22 points? 12? This is not efficient scoring, for example. And Hayward was efficient in each of those matchups. So while he didn't score a lot, he at least knocked down most of the shoots and he is one of the best mid-range shooters in Boston, which is especially important against Raptors because their defense will give you tons of main shoots. That's how they play. So why does losing Hayward hurt Boston? In each game against Toronto this year, the Celtics went with their Walker, Brown, Hayward, Tatum, Tice lineup. I will repeat: point guard Walker, small guard Brown, small forward Tatum, and power forward Hayward and Tice as a center. Now, it is allowing why? It is allowing Tatum to operate as point forward practically. Pick and roll Tatum, that's why he is becoming superstar or star. We will talk about the difference. John Karalis has excellent article for the I'm saying that Luka Doncic showed the difference between star and superstar. It is great opportunity to remind the Celtics fans to learn some from great piece of John Karalis. Return to the lineup. So when Tatum is at 3, power forward, he is creating for himself and for his team. He has 6'10", he can put you off the dribble, and he's playing pick and roll. He can also assist. On the other, Hayward can play, with his back, and he even has the good touch around him. This lineup was good. Without Hayward, the Celtics, Daniel, will go very small. So we will go in the starting lineup with the lineup of Kemba Walker, Marcus Smart, Brown, Tatum, and Tice, practically the 4 guards and forwards, and 1 power forward according to the
Looks like your internet is acting up, Igor. Your audio.
heights 6'8". What part you didn't
Now
hear?
you're back.
Mm. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. So again, I repeat, uh, the Celtics are small, and the first two subs of the bench, they're also guards without Gordon Hayward. That is a big difference. And Daniel, how ignorant the Celtics fans, again, apologize to the Celtics fans that are realistic. When Hayward went down, first reaction was spitting at him because he's receiving maximum money. And the second reaction is we don't miss him because we defeated Philadelphia without him. How stupid can you be to say something like this? I cannot understand. And what's wrong with those Celtics fans? I cannot understand. But what do you say about lose Gordon Hayward factor? How does it hurt Boston? I try to explain, but you please go on.
Well, we saw that effect basically in the last two games, Igor. In this case, we saw game
Yes,
two. The Celtics
yes.
basically played a game where they blew out the 76ers, like you said, in this situation. But come game three, when Philadelphia finally had the opportunity to make some adjustments, realizing what they needed to focus on rather than focusing on, certain players, they turned their attention to others. We saw more double teaming put on our star players, which put the ball more on other guys to have to get the job done. Game two, we saw big performances from both Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum in this case, in terms of them really, nailing shots left and right. Game three, on the other hand, was a different story. Obviously, game three, you got to understand that Tatum did have foul trouble early in the game, but Jaylen Brown didn't, and we didn't see a big, time performance from him overall. Game four, adjustments are made again. Tatum does manage this time around though to get the job done and put up a good performance overall with like 20 something points, 28 points in this case, something like that. Um, but Gordon Hayward, Igor being there was critical because the moment you faced a team that had enough stars of their own, that's the key word, stars. It doesn't have to be superstars. Stars, ladies and gentlemen. The
All
moment
stars,
you find
all
a
stars,
team that
all
had
stars players.
stars, all stars, however you want to say it, that could
They
keep
have
up.
they have two all-star players to help you. They have two all-star players in Kyle Lowry and Pascal Siakam. Pascal, they have the title. They are defending champs. Margasol, he is NBA champion. He is European champion, both with the Spain and both with the team. He's ex-all-star and he's a great player. Also, uh, I think that
Can't forget
Serge
him.
Ibaka was somewhere, at least in Europe, he was a star, but he's not star there. Here, he's not a star, but he is very tough matchup for us. Please go on.
Yeah, but that's the key. Going against Philadelphia, ladies and gentlemen, you had only one star to worry about, Joel Embiid. Al Horford and Harris,
Yep.
they're good players in this situation, veteran players, but they're not stars in this situation, all-star caliber players. At least, Horford, he was like that in Boston because of the type of, you know, um, the type of system that Brad Stevens likes to run. It worked perfectly for Al Horford and the type of game he likes to play, Igor. Playing in Philadelphia was a totally different system. Brett Brown and the coaching staff didn't do nothing to change the system they had to basically try and integrate Al Horford a little bit better because they focused solely on Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid. Those are their two stars. So as long as the system basically caters to those two, they were happy with it. And unfortunately, Al Horford basically he got his money, but he got basically lost somewhere in the memory banks, pretty much, of that team's computer. Let's just say it like that. The Toronto Raptors, on the other hand, they got enough talent in their starting five to go toe to toe with Tatum, Brown, and Kemba right now. Lowry can put up just as big of a performance any given night as Jayson Tatum could. Ibaka, I mean, you know, Ibaka, like you said, he's not someone that's really gonna be lighting up the score sheet with no 40 or 50-point performances, but that brother is a pest on the defensive end in this case, and can still give you a solid 15 to 20 points per night, depending on how things go. And unfortunately, because of the fact that we really don't have, as we say, a really decent big man unit, Ibaka could basically take advantage because he's like Embiid, Igor. Embiid didn't like to run up and down the court. You think I'm lying, ladies and gentlemen? Just take a look at games 3 and 4 against us. How many times did Embiid not even bother to go to the opposite side of the court to play defense in this case, whenever the Celtics basically got a turnover or something like that? He decided just to let the points go in this situation. You will not see that type of crap from Ibaka and the rest of those guys. You know, so Hayward, Igor, is critical and was critical in this case because even if Tatum, Brown, and Kemba were outscored by the top three players on the Toronto Raptors unit, regardless of how you want to put the pecking order, whether it's Kyle Lowry at number one, and then you consider number two, number three, regardless of how you want to put it, there's a possibility that in this next round, Tatum, Brown, and Kemba are not going to be able to dominate this series enough in order to basically give you the advantages like they did against Philadelphia. In Philadelphia, Igor, Embiid is the only star, like we said, in that matchup. And then after that, you got what? Horford and Harris that are the next two best players. Compare those three: Embiid, Harris, and of course, Horford versus Kemba, Brown, and Tatum. Which trio is going to give you more points on a night-to-night basis? You got to be an idiot to actually consider that it's going to be Horford, Harris, and Embiid in this situation. Now, you want to consider if it was Simmons, maybe Embiid, Simmons, and Harris, or Embiid, Simmons, and Horford, then maybe you might want to make an argument. But Horford, Harris, and Embiid is a totally different story. There ain't no chance. But here, like you said, Igor, you're now looking at Kyle Lowry, Anunoby in this case, and in my opinion, Siakam. Those are the top three guys in this situation, and you got to consider how much they're going to play. Now, think of the last game, Igor. We beat them 122 to 100 not too long ago in one of the one of the regular season games or the seeding games in this situation. Now, our guys didn't really play. I guess you could say the guys from Toronto didn't play that long because, of course, the Celtics took a lead so early and kind of blew the game so early on that the Raptors decided just to pretty much quit in this situation and not even focus on really fighting. And at that time, Igor, the second seed was pretty much locked up for them. Same thing for the Celtics kind of being locked up in the third spot. So the Raptors didn't really have nothing to really fight for in this case. I don't think that game really can be a testament to what you're looking at. So the last game that they played prior to that, you got to go back to December when the Celtics got beat 113-97. Now, take a look, Igor. 30 points for Kyle Lowry in that game in 39 minutes, 20 points for Ibaka in that game, and then, of course, Anunoby in that game scored only 7 in 50. He played only 15 minutes. He suffered an injury in that game, if I remember, which is why he didn't get to play that long. But compare, Igor. Let's compare, ladies and gentlemen, the numbers. You say Tatum is number one, Igor? That's how everybody pretty much views it. Tatum's your number one. Okay, number one versus number one. Tatum scores 12 points in 36 minutes in that game versus Kyle Lowry scoring 30 points in 39 minutes. So they played nearly the same amount of minutes, but Kyle Lowry nearly triples the amount that Tatum does in that game. Your number two. in the situation. People view it's Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown scores 17 points in 37 minutes. Do that versus Ibaka, Igor, 20 points in 30 minutes. So once again, you got the Toronto guy basically winning the matchup in the second spot. The only time you actually get the advantage is when you go to the three spot, which in this case is Kemba Walker scoring 30 points in 39 minutes versus, again, Anunoby, who only played 15 minutes due to injury, if I'm right, and he scored only 7 points. But you don't know, again, how much he would have scored if he would have been able to play the full game, the full amount of minutes he would have played. But the key is Gordon Hayward scored 13 points in 35 minutes, regardless of whether you're putting Hayward against McCall or against Van Vliet. Hayward is basically right there matching those guys point for, nearly point for point. In this case, both those guys, McCall and Van Vliet, scored 18 points, and Hayward scored 13. But of course, this is all prior to the trade deadline, Igor. That's the other thing. Toronto has gotten themselves a much better, unit at this point. But Gordon Hayward being there, Igor, makes it where you can't consider double teaming Jayson Tatum. You can't consider double teaming, Jaylen Brown. You can't consider double teaming Kemba Walker. Why is that? Because at that point, who are you going to choose, Igor, to leave basically wide open? Daniel Tice can stay in the paint. If Ibaka chooses to leave Tice, it's a wide open dunk, pretty much. If you decide to take Ibaka and double team Tatum, Brown, or Kemba. Or do you take Hayward's man and double team one of those three, which leaves Hayward now wide open for three? Marcus Smart, as good as he is, Igor, is not really a good offensive player. He can have a good offensive performance from time to time, but Marcus Smart is more of a defensive-minded person. Hayward is the one that if you're looking for a decent performance game in and game out, he's the one basically you got to put in that spot. If, of course, he's 100% healthy. That's the other key in this situation. So, ladies and gentlemen, right now, this Hayward injury puts the Raptors as the favorites in this series. Because now they can easily leave Marcus Smart wide open and double team Tatum, Brown, or Kemba and basically say, hey, Smart, you beat us. Prove that you can hit that three-pointer consistently, 9 times out of 10. And then we'll consider basically, deciding to basically guard you. But until that point, you're going to be the one that's going to have to beat us while we go toe-to-toe guarding the other guys, double teaming and triple teaming them in this case. Same thing can be said about Tice, Igor. Look at how Embiid was constantly leaving Tice wide open because he wanted to guard the paint. And Daniel Tice opted not to shoot the three-pointers at that point. Same thing can be said. Things could become easier for Daniel Tice if Gordon Hayward is basically in there at that point. Because Daniel Tice gets a lot more wide open shots. Down low in this case, rather than it being beyond the three-point line. This series is going to come down to the bench. The bench, ladies and gentlemen, in this case. And Igor, once we get, we'll move into like the lineups and all that at some point. But people, once you hear the names of the players from the two bench units, you'll understand why me and Igor are saying Boston's bench, these guys are going to have to basically, Igor, grow a few years in a matter of hours pretty much in order for this Celtics team to have a chance. And Igor, your microphone is muted.
Yes. I'm. Excuse me, Daniel. Great preview from your side. I have the great numbers. I have dived into numbers, but before we do that, I must finish my overall preview that I started. The person that is next to elaborate from the Celtics is Jaylen Brown. A big part of this, the only player that had a stellar year against the Raptors was Jaylen Brown. Big part of this was because in the rotations, the Celtics rotation let Brown match up with either Laurie or Fred VanVleet. While both Laurie and Fred VanVleet good defenders, they simply lack of size and athleticism to contend with Brown. Defensively, this was also critical because Brown was the has length to contest VanVleet on Laurie on the perimeter, and the length and athleticism to stay in front of VanVleet and Laurie in the defense when they drive. Notably, the second most used lineup that the Celtics had is Smart, Brown, Hayward, Tatum, Tice. Smart, Brown, Hayward, Tatum, Tice. This lineup was also used against the Toronto quite a bit with both Laurie, VanVleet, Smart, Brown, Tatum, Tice. Once again, this involving putting Jaylen Brown in favorable matchup against Toronto undersized guards, VanVleet and Laurie on the defense. How Boston matches up without Hayward. The matchup becomes tougher without Hayward because right now Tatum will match up Siakam, a matchup that he can handle. I will talk more about that. More troublesome is that Brown gets a matchup with Anunoby. Now, matchup with Brown with Anunoby OG is stronger and better built to defend Brown than VanVleet and Laurie. Now, Daniel, without Hayward, Brown will have to handle Anunoby, and that is the switch that Nurse will force. And this is worrisome because in every single game against Toronto this year, Brown was revelation, and putting him in tougher defensive matchups again against Anunoby brings his potential production into question. What is more, Marcus Smart was putrid against Toronto this year. While Hayward didn't score much against Toronto, neither did Smart. The difference is that with Hayward, you are getting the production, an efficient production, like 50 points per game with efficient rate. And Smart is able to do it. Smart struggled a lot with his shoot against the Toronto Raptors defense, and I'm going to talk about that defense, Daniel, a little later. Replacing a low volume efficient scorer like Hayward with low volume inefficient scorer is not exactly the best solution for the Celtics, but they don't have the choice, too much choice. Because what is the option if we don't start Smart? To go big? Brad Stevens would rather quit before he put the real center out there. So the option is to go with Ojole, completely zero in offense, and Grant Williams, which is solid but not the best, and Marcus Smart is the best possible solution for the starting lineup. What do you think about what I talked? Jaylen Brown matched with VanVleet and Laurie, and on the other hand, Jaylen Brown will be forced from Nick Nurse, to guard OG Anunoby. Do you think it will put Brown in difficult position, Daniel?
Well, obviously, it's going to. Think about it again, like you said, Igor. That's another reason why Hayward was so critical for this matchup. What causes you basically to get foul trouble when your guy has the ball more often than the rest of the players? That's why people who end up guarding LeBron James get more fouls than when there's someone guarding, let's say, Rajon Rondo on that team, because LeBron has the ball in his hand a majority of the time. Same thing when you're guarding any other player. If you're responsible for guarding one of those top players that, of course, has the referees respect already and is viewed as a star for that team, you're more likely than not going to get called for fouls at some point. Which is why whoever has to guard Kyle Lowry and Anunoby and Ibaka in this series are going to have to worry about their foul trouble in this case. Which is why when you went toe to toe with Toronto throughout this
I
season,
expect Marcus Smart on, to tell you right away, I expect Marcus Smart on Kyle Lowry. And like I said, the matchups will be like this. Marcus Smart, Kyle Lowry, mm, who is there? Jaylen Brown against Van Vliet, but they force Jaylen Brown against OG Anunoby. OG Anunoby guard Jayson Tatum. Margasol will guard who is there in the Celtics. I mean, obviously, let me rethink about it. Yeah, Pascal Siakam and Jayson Tatum. OG Anunoby will guard, OG Anunoby will guard Brown, and they will put Margasol at Daniel Tice, and they will leave openly Daniel Tice in the offense. They will leave him shoot openly in the series. Please go on.
Well, again, when you look at the last matchup for them, Igor, in terms of now, I'm not talking last matchup with the Celtics, ladies and gentlemen. I'm talking Game 4 against the Brooklyn Nets. The starting lineup for the Brooklyn Nets, for the Toronto Raptors that game were Pascal Siakam at power forward, Anunoby at the small forward, Marc Gasol at center, Kyle Lowry at point guard, Fred VanVleet at shooting guard. So obviously we know Gasol's the biggest guy on that team, Igor, which means Daniel Tice is probably going to have to guard him at that point. I think Jaylen Brown is ultimately going to have to guard Ibaka because Ibaka then is the next biggest man at that point, which means Tatum is going to have to guard Anunoby in this case. And then, like you said, Marcus Smart will end up taking Kyle Lowry and Kemba will take Van Vliet at that point. So Jaylen Brown is going to be in a position where he's got to guard somebody who is, is pretty tall, is athletic, and can run the floor as well, just like he can in this case when it comes to Ibaka. Now, because Ibaka is that, Ibaka has the ball like the third most on the team in terms of time with the ball. Jaylen Brown is going to have foul trouble, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe not as bad, let's say, as Daniel Tice, because we know Tice has no respect from the officials whatsoever.
Just to say, Daniel, that Ibaka is probably their second or the first sub from bench that is making their bench top 3 benches in the NBA. Please go on.
Right, Siakam. So, like I said, he's probably going to have to guard Siakam while Ibaka is off the bench, like you said. And at that point, Siakam in game 4, he scored 20 points in 33 minutes in this case. Again, just shows you how pathetic the Brooklyn Nets are in this situation. That that was that. But you'll notice that if you're gonna have to guard Siakam at this point, and you're capable of having the same athleticism as Jaylen Brown, you got the same speed pretty much running up and down the court, and you have the ball in your hands, Igor, nearly as much time as Brown does. You're at risk of getting into foul trouble if you're Jaylen Brown in this case. Now, obviously, whoever's guarding Kyle Lowry will be the one that basically has to risk the foul trouble the most because Kyle
Marcus Smart
is the
and Wanamaker maybe.
Yeah, they're the ones who are. Lowry's the star for that team. He's the top dog in this case. But Siakam, Smart is too small to guard Siakam. Even though I wouldn't put it past him the chance and him finding some sort of way to get the job done. But after Lowry, it's going to come down to Tatum and Brown having to guard Siakam and Anunoby in this situation. And unfortunately, those guys, Igor,
Mhm.
get as much of a, the same treatment that fans want Tatum and Brown to have, those guys get already in this case, which is the problem.
And the fans, that is what is the problem with Boston fans. When you explain to the fans that Toronto Raptors deserve the treatment by winning the championship, that treatment by the officials, and the other stars deserve the treatment with their achievements, and that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown, except one fluke Eastern Conference Finals, um, they didn't deserve anything in their careers. But it is hard to explain that to the Celtics fans. Please go on.
And so Jaylen Brown, Igor, I expect him that he will be able to put up, let's say, like 20 points a game, something like that in this series. But he's
But
not
the,
going to
but
have the
he,
same.
he will score. But the key is efficient. He was not efficient against Philadelphia. Tatum was. Brown was not. And Kemba Walker, he was not efficient. In some games, Brown was efficient, but the other game, one game efficient, another game inefficient. He's scoring 20 points, but the key is how many shoots does he take? The same with Kemba Walker. That is the key. Efficiency, not how many points he will score, right?
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. Because under the normal circumstances, if Gordon Hayward would have been playing, like you said, Daniel Tice would have been on Marcus Gasol, and because Marcus Gasol doesn't really score much, he doesn't take too many shots. Daniel Tice, whatever few points basically he's able to get, literally can match up Marcus Gasol on a game-to-game basis. Then Gordon Hayward would go to
Yes.
would go toe to toe with Siakam, and that made it, Igor, where technically either Tatum or Brown, one of them would be assigned to Van Vliet at that point. Whichever one of them got Van Vliet had to take advantage of that matchup so that if Gordon Hayward didn't outscore Siakam, then that matchup against Van Vliet would be the negating factor. So if Siakam scored 20 and Hayward scored 15, all you needed to do basically was score 5 more than Van Vliet to basically negate the impact that Siakam basically had. But now that there is no Hayward, you're going to be in a situation where you don't have that safety net. Now you pretty much have to outscore Siakam if you're Brown and Tatum and Anunoby in this situation because obviously Kemba Walker and Kyle Lowry, those guys are basically going to get put into a matchup as point guards, even though I don't think they're going to be really defending each other. Lowry may defend Kemba on one side, but we know, like you said, Marcus Smart will probably get the job defending him on the defensive end. But in the battle of point guards, it's going to become a situation where I think those two will negate each other. Their amounts will be similar in this case to actually get the job done. So Igor,
Kemba Walker and Kyle Lowry, right?
yeah, Kemba
And
Walker,
I'm giving edge to Kyle Lowry because he can score the same points like Kemba Walker. He's clutch, he's experienced, but he also is playing the good defense, unlike Kemba Walker. He's playing better defense than Kemba Walker.
well,
I'm
Igor,
talking
that,
about Kyle Lowry, you
well,
know?
that, but also on top of it, he's the number one option in this team. He's the LeBron James for the Toronto Raptors at this point. So the ball is going to be
Yep,
in
yep,
his
yep,
hands
yep,
a
yep,
majority
yep,
of
yep.
the time. You can't say that with Kemba Walker,
Absolutely.
knowing that they try to give the ball a lot to Tatum and a lot to Brown. Even though Kemba Walker, in my opinion,
Mm-hmm.
right now is the best player on the Boston Celtics, Tatum and Brown still get that
Yep,
position and they're still viewed as the number one and number two option in this case. So
right,
even
right.
though even though
Well,
Lowry and Kemba are
yeah,
the point guards, in a way, Igor, it's gonna be Tatum's responsibility. If he's number one, ladies and gentlemen, in your book,
Tatum.
Tatum has got to get the job done, regardless of who's defending him, to match up Kyle Lowry. Make it where Lowry, you don't have to, if you can outscore Lowry, then do it. but keep your amount as close as possible to Kyle Lowry in this situation so that Kemba Walker and Jaylen Brown can try to take advantage against Siakam and Anunoby and hopefully give you the edge after the top three players for each team, their numbers are finally, counted for. Because like I said, Daniel Tice, I'm confident he can keep up with Marcus Gasol because Marcus Gasol doesn't get much shooting in this case, many shots up. And then Van Vliet in this case, the only way you see him taking a lot of shots in this case is if for whatever reason one of those first three guys is out with an injury or double teaming takes place and you keep leaving him wide open. If it's a straight up man to man defense type situation, Van Vliet himself is not going to take too many shots, which means now Marcus Smart doesn't have to really do much work on offense in order to really get the job done and match up his men. After that, though, Igor, like I said, bench in this case. Your bench.
Yeah, that's what I want to talk. Let me start with that depth. The last place Boston is hurt is depth. It is not the secret that Boston has a bad bench. Of course, we saw the good performance in the game 2 or 3, I think 3, after we lost Hayward and Boston Celtics screamed, "Here you go, we have the good bench." But I'm not going to be crazy to believe that our bench is going to sustain the productivity from the game number 3 with Philadelphia. You should be crazy to think about that. So it's a unit. I'm talking about this bench. We saw Jayson Tatum with Wanamaker, Romeo Langford, Grant Williams, Enes Kanter. Okay, and potentially plus you can add Grant Williams eventually on the defense. It's a unit that can defend possibly well, but it cannot buy a bucket, Daniel. It cannot buy a bucket. Losing Hayward hurts Boston's depth, and we are forced to take away Smart as a scoring option from the bench to the starting unit, and we will see more of our largely untried and unproven rookies. While miracles can happen that we saw against Philadelphia, should give us some repose. Toronto on their bench, I will just explain. Their bench will consist, Daniel, in no circumstances of Terence Davis point guard, Matt Thomas shooting guard, then Norman Powell small forward, or Norman Powell shooting guard, Matt Thomas small forward, Rondi Hollisterson power forward, and Serge Ibaka center. I have injury informations to share to our dear viewers. I just lost them. So additionally to Loris suffered ankle injury in game 4 against the Nets. For the Raptors, Patrick McCaw from Golden State Warriors forward, one man that they can put on Brown and Tatum. He left the NBA bubble in Orlando before the playoffs to receive treatment to reoccurrence of bending mass in the back of his left knee. Patrick McCaw left because of his knee. That is the trouble with the Raptors. So when we explained about their bench, I want to emphasize that their bench is better than the Celtics. That is why I'm giving the edge to Toronto Raptors, and this is my biggest concern. Like I said, on their bench, they have Norman Powell. Given Brown Tatum, I don't think that Toronto can deploy Powell as a starter because Boston will exploit the matchup on offense. Brown and Tatum can destroy Powell because he's small. Brown and Tatum can exploit that mismatch on the offense. But Powell off the bench with our bench unit can easily give you 10 plus points per game, and 10 points is basically a best case scenario of entire Celtics bench. Powell has upside because when he has shooting nights, Daniel, he can 15 and 20 points. To sum it up, my biggest concern with Toronto is they will wear us out. For example, in long series, 6 or 7 games, the bench will come to light. Without a viable bench, Boston starters will have to play extraordinary series. Practically, we are 6 deep team. Brown will have to work more because I don't think he can overpower Anunoby the way he overpower Van Vliet and Laurie. Tatum will have his work cut out of him to defending and scoring around Siakam. He has tough match. Toronto may also opt to go large, deploying lineup with, for example, Daniel, Laurie, Van Vliet, Siakam, Ibaka, Gasol. Imagine that. Siakam at 3, Ibaka, Gasol. So they can practically crush us with their length and size. Don't forget that, Daniel. They have the opportunity to go big against us also. So Nick Nurse has to choose. On the other hand, Stevens has no choice because he doesn't have experienced playoff players. That is why we are in trouble in those type of series. While slow, this lineup with Laurie, Van Vliet, Siakam, Ibaka, Gasol, this lineup would take advantage of Boston's biggest weakness, which is physically inside. Forcing Tatum to match with the strong, physically Ibaka would also help Toronto to wear Tatum down throughout the series. And that is the key to Tatum. You talk about that too, Daniel. This matchup is the key for me. Tatum Siakam and Tatum Ibaka. So I have been on the fence with Tatum Brown being superstars all year and becoming the superstars. This is the matchup where they can prove it by beating tough matchups to carry their team over tough opposition on the stage. If you are a superstars like the Celtics fans are saying, then you can carry your team over the tough oppositions. Without Hayward, Tatum and Brown both have to step and score 20 to 30 points per game that we need. Do you want something to add before I move on to the video breakdown of I have like 10 minutes video breakdown with statistics of them, Daniel. Do you want something to say about it? So the reasons, I mean, everything that I just said, Daniel, everything that I just said, Laurie is healthy to go. What do you say?
Well, you made a valid point, which is technically, Igor, everything you just said there is technically what you and me have been saying all season long in this case. That one, this team is too small in this situation for this type of Eastern Conference. You're
Yes.
the other top three
Yes.
teams, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Toronto. All of them went the big man route, trying to get size
My name is Coach Piper.
in
You
this
follow me on
situation.
Twitter at HalfCourtHoops. If you enjoyed this video, please like it.
So you were in a situation where the Celtics, had to go the route of considering if you gave all your money away to guards, which is what you technically did. You gave all your money to Hayward, all your money to Kemba, all your money to Jaylen Brown, and pretty soon Tatum's gonna be right there with them in this case. Which, from what I understand, which I heard, Igor, one thing that said Tatum's contract could be the most money anybody has ever been paid in the history of the Celtics in this case, and this is only his second contract in his NBA career in this situation. That tells you how crazy it is, when it comes to how the money is going today. Tatum, basically, somebody who hasn't even won a championship yet, is going to be getting paid way more money than what guys like Pierce and Garnett and all of them were doing. But you just do not have the size. Daniel Tice, Time Lord, Robert Williams, should I say Time Lord is Robert Williams, but Taco Fall, none of them have the body to really bang with these top players. Eames Cantor is the only one. Think about it, ladies and gentlemen. For all the hate that you guys have against Al Horford, what was one thing that made Al Horford?
Yeah, about what you're talking, Tatum's contract, I don't have the exact numbers, but something like 100. They said, I will find the information that you just said, 154 millions. Let me just wait a second, because I want to offer that information to the Celtics fans, because this is very interesting. And of course, we will be accused that we are watching basketball through the money, but that is very important, because if you are the star, if you're paid as the star, then you should play as one star. I had somewhere the picture. Yes, biggest contracts according to Bobby Martin in the Celtics history. Kemba Walker right now 141 millions. Gordon Hayward 128 millions. Al Horford number 3 113 millions. Jaylen Brown number 4 107 millions. And the ones that are accusing us of shooting at Jaylen Brown, well, he didn't yet prove to be worth it. Believe it or not, you know, for me at least, he is the fourth biggest contract in the Celtics round. He's ahead of Paul Pierce receiving maximum 79 million. I think that Jaylen Brown is bigger player, and no, not. Of course, it is a different time and different type of contracts, large ones, but maximum projected to be 100 contract in the history, 158 millions, and that is only if the cap stays 109 millions in 21-22 season. Go on.
Yeah, so I'm simply saying in this case that you and me have made the argument. If these guys truly, Igor, are what everybody claims they are, and you're ready to start paying them that type of money, where now they're making the most money in history for the Boston Celtics, well then, ladies and gentlemen, there is no excuse for them not to basically go the distance in this situation. Horford, like I said, Igor, people complained that they didn't like him, they wanted him to go. But what was Horford? What was the top thing, Igor, that we saw from Horford every season? Horford was elite when it came to guarding some of these top players in terms of the big man department. Horford made life miserable for Embiid. Horford made life miserable for Giannis Antetokounmpo. Horford made life miserable for Draymond Green. Horford was capable because of the type of body he had and the type of offensive game he had. He made it where those guys had to work on both sides of the floor. There ain't nobody on this roster right now, Igor, that has that type of talent on offense or defense, just from the big men only. No, Daniel Tice doesn't have it. Cantor doesn't have it. Time Lord doesn't have it. Taco Fall doesn't have it. Grant Williams doesn't have it. Semi Ojale doesn't have it. None of those guys have it right now to do what Al Horford did for this team when it comes to going toe to toe with those big guys. Now you're about to face a team, ladies and gentlemen, that pretty much says, forget going small. We're going to basically put two or three bigs against you. Think about it, Igor. One thing that's critical with this, you're going to face the same issue next round against Milwaukee. If you are lucky enough to get past Toronto. And look who they could be putting on the floor, Igor. Giannis and the Lopez brothers. That's like nearly 3 7-footers that you basically now can have to guard at that point. Because two of them, which in this case are Giannis and Brook, they're capable of nailing the 3-pointers. Robin is the one that really, his 3-point shot really isn't that great in this situation. So he's the one that will probably play down low. But 3 7-footers, who on this Celtic starting lineup is going to be capable of guarding those guys if you're going super small? which is why I have argued all year long. If you're going to go toe to toe with Philadelphia or toe to toe with Milwaukee, you got to go with a regular starting lineup, the traditional starting lineup. Three small, two big in this case. But Brad Stevens is basically too in love with the spreading the ball in this case because he wants a lot of shots to be able to be put up, especially from beyond the arc. So you're just gonna have to put up with it. But I won't be surprised, Igor, if that happens, exactly like you said, that we see Toronto put a bunch of big guys on the floor and they just try to pound it into the paint for a bunch of easy baskets because we're too small at that point. And then if you go big, Igor, well, you can maybe get the job done on defense if you get lucky, but what are you going to get offensively? That's the other problem. Because pretty much Cantor, even though he hit that three-pointer the other night, which I was shocked when that went in this case, Cantor pretty much he's not Kevin Garnett, Igor. That's the thing. Cantor is not a Kevin Garnett type player. Daniel Tice is the closest thing you got when it comes to somebody who can shoot outside the paint. But even that's not going to be enough. You're going to basically sacrifice the offense for the defense at that point. So which one is more important? Stopping the bigs from Toronto from basically scoring, if you can, or basically hoping that your shots keep falling in left and right, like the hoop basically became 50 feet long pretty much for the ball to go in, so you're guaranteed to make it, but knowing you're going to give up just as many points on the defensive end because you went too small. So that's the top thing, Igor, that you and me argued all season long. We argued you're too small at this point, and at the same time, if you can't get past round two, you're not worth the money that basically is going to be historic figures.
Yes, yes. Great that you reminded me, Daniel. Great that you reminded me. Because I had argued with one fan and he said, Jaylen Brown said, uh, quote, we are already better than last year's team. And I was like, dude, how the hell are you better than the last year's team? Last year's team had 49 wins the full season. This team, 48 wins with 10 short season, 10 games short season. Okay. Um, you're better because last year's team was fourth and you're third. Okay, that's how you're better. But you're better than last year's team if you defeat Toronto and if you reach the Eastern Conference Finals. If you fail to Toronto, you're not better, dear Jaylen Brown, dear Celtics fans. If you fail and if you lose to Toronto, you're at the same level as last year's team. And everybody that is saying um, that this year's team is better than last year's team, if they lose to Toronto, is just. I have done a piece of the game video breakdown, and now we're full of numbers. And the Celtics fans that want key of the games should listen carefully. I will repeat the stats at the end, like 9 minutes. I took a look at transition numbers. Toronto is ranked third in the NBA transition at 1.14 points per possessions, while the Boston Celtics is sixth in transitional defense, only allowing 1.07 points per possession, flipping into the Celtics transitional offense, ranked fifth in the transition scoring. Celtics transitional offense is fifth in scoring, and the Celtics are scoring 1.13 points per possession in the transition. But the Raptors are the first in transitional defense, holding the teams to only 0.4 points per possession. Now, that's hard part about quantifying transition defense that I struggled when I was looking to the numbers and looking to the film study and how the teams are, generally speaking, of transitional defense. So if you want to stop the players in the traditional defense, you must get back at time, and your half-court offense should be good. Of course, you must have balance between the transition and the half-court offense and defense. So by watching the film and by studying, uh, the teams that are elite transition defensively and offensively. The key is, defensive communication, and this is particularly, live ball turnovers. When you give the ball to the opposition, and when the opponent team is scoring easy buckets, it will just fuel the opposition match, and also to attack the switches, favorable matchups. That is the main focus that we talk about. And the Celtics ranked sixth in the NBA. The Celtics ranked sixth in the NBA, only turning the ball over 13.6% of the time, while the Raptors defense forces turnovers 16.7% of the time. Uh, Good for the second in the NBA. The Raptors forcing the turnovers in 16.7% of possessions. The Raptors are second in the NBA by forcing the turnovers, only behind, hyper aggressive Chicago. Ball screen trapping defense battle is, their speciality, ball screen trapping defense. And the two big questions for me, Daniel, in their offense, can the Raptors force the turnovers against the Celtics offense? That is the key question for them. Can they force turnovers against our offense? On the other side, will the Celtics be able to limit the Raptors' transitional scoring? Will the Celtics defense be able to limit transitional scorers? And can the Raptors force the turnovers against the Celtics offense? Raptors are applying, like I said, ball screen trapping tactics. Can the Raptors force, the turnovers? And will the Celtics be able to slow down the Raptors' transitional scoring? Offense of the Raptors excelling in transition, half-court offense, is transitional scoring offensively. If we limit transitional scoring of Toronto Raptors offensively, we will do majority of the job, because by scouting their half-court offense, is middle of the road, 17th, according to Cleaning the Glass, middle of the pack, effective field goal percentage, as well as turnover percentage, 14 and 15 in the NBA. They are not also, so the Raptors are not good hard offensive team, like 17th, and they are not great offensive rebounding team, because they are like 14, 15, those teams, Celtics and the Raptors, 14th and 15th in the rebounding compartment. They are not great offensive rebounding team, the Raptors. They are 24% of their misses, possibly due to not crushing the ball, and emphasis the transition. When you watch their games, you can see that they're crushing the ball. They're not going, Daniel, after the offensive boards too much. They clean their glass on the defensive end, but when they grab the rebound, they're running the transition very fast. Nurse is running some great actions out of timeout. Another thing, the side and about the Celtics defense, fourth in the defensive efficiency overall. The Celtics defense is fourth in defensive efficiency, overall. And looking at the four factors, the Celtics ranked fourth in effective field goal percent. The Celtics holding the team, the Celtics are holding opposition teams to 51.1% shooting. Celtics forced turnovers 15.4% of the time, 15.4% of the possessions. The Celtics forced turnovers. That is the sixth best in the NBA. but the Celtics struggle with rebounding. The Celtics are giving 25.6 offensive rebounds, or 1 out every 4 possessions, and they tend to foul more. 22nd in free throw rate, 21.6. They foul more. It makes sense. If higher turnover team fouls more, it means you are really aggressive on the defensive. Okay, so I found notable the Celtics ranked 20th in post-up defense. That the Celtics 20th in the post-up defense, especially important because they will attack us in the post, and we are 20th in post-up defense. That is not great, and that included pass-out area against the Raptors. The Raptors top 10 in finishing ninth, so I think this is area for concerning. Post-up defense and offense, Raptors 10th, the Celtics 20th. I mean, is it not going to be game-changing? That probably, considering the Raptors only post up 7% of the time. So the Raptors do not post up, but they can change it. Nick Nurse can change it, and Daniel, he post up like 20% of their time. When he see that the Celtics are 20th in defensive paint in the NBA. Okay, so this is the weakness that the Raptors may be able to exploit, particularly if the Celtics start to switch more on this. Normally, I'm going to be expecting the Raptors to post up more and attacking the rim. And if the Celtics can contain them, this year Raptors are ranked third in shoot in the rim, third in shoots in the rim, and in shoots in the rim, getting there 38% of time at the rim. The Celtics allow 33 of the shoots at the rim, good for the 8th in the NBA. So shoots at the rim, the Celtics, like I said, 8th in the NBA. That's not battle shoots at the time paying attention to, of course, just noting. Let's go to the Celtics offense. Offense 4th in the NBA, offensive rating 113.6. The Celtics offense 4th in the NBA, 113.6. The fourth decisive factor for the Celtics offense, starting off with effective field goal percent. They are below average, but if they shoot 32 points, 18th in the NBA, we discussed the ability. They limit turnovers, so they ranked 6th in the NBA with turnover percent 13.6. 6th in the NBA. The Celtics turnover percent 13.6%. They are good offensive rebounding team, 27.1 rebounds per misses. Good for the 5th in the NBA. Offensive rebounds, 27 offensive rebounds, 5th in the NBA. Getting to the free throw line is the key of any great offense. The Celtics are getting to the line 21 of the time and only 10th in the NBA. We talked about offense, transitional offense. Transitional offense is 5th in the NBA. That is the best offense the Celtics are possessing. They are not good in getting to the line, free throws. They are 10th. But in transitional offense, the Celtics are 5th, Daniel, according to Synergy. So we see that the Celtics are great isolation scoring team. This is typical for the playoffs, especially more than regular season. Out of isolation, but since the Raptors have aggressive help defense, aggressive help efficiency out of isolation, only 11th in the Celtics offense. So we are not efficient in isolation plays. Since the Raptors have aggressive help defense, this could be an area that the Raptors do well. In other areas, the Celtics do well in this post-up scoring, as well as pick and rolls, including pass and creations ranking 5th. What the Celtics are bad, Daniel, in isolation plays. Okay, in isolation offense, they are actually 5th. Pardon. But in passing out of isolation, which is extremely important. For example, Tatum is playing one-on-one against Van Vliet. Van Vliet is containing him. If he passes the ball, then from that secondary play, we can score. But we are only 11th in passing, in scoring after passing out of isolation plays. So that is the area where the Raptors defense excels, because the Raptors help defense out of those passes in isolations. The Raptors defense, this is top 4 in the NBA. And the first defense in the NBA, overall defense is the second, So the Raptors are practically first in help defense, and the second overall in the defense. Second overall behind only Milwaukee, back defense, okay? So the 4 factors break down, rank the, Raptors to holding team, the defense of the Raptors holding the teams to 50.6% shooting, 50.6% shooting, second in turnover percentage. Like we said, when it comes to Celtics turnovers, 16.7% turnovers. They struggled with offensive rebound, 21st, allowing the offensive rebound 26th time. The Celtics may exploit that area, ranked 5th in the NBA in offensive percent. The Celtics strategy attacking the offensive glass should be, and of course the transition and middle of the road rate, the Celtics 20.3 free throws per 100 possession. Not good free throw team, ranked only 16th in free throws in the NBA. So the business is, Kemba and Jayson Tatum, elite scorers out of pick and roll, both ranked top 10 scoring out of pick and rolls. Interesting, the Raptor defense giving up the most percentage of 41% of the time in those pick and roll scoring, and attempting middle of the pack, attempting the three 35.8% of the time. And the Raptors defensive identity allowed threes, to stop the shoots at the rim. And the Raptors are allowing 32.8 threes per game, 3-point attempts. Ultra aggressive help defense is going to force you to, turnovers. And of course, the Raptors only 7% attacking the rim, and the Celtics went 3-1 when they meet the Celtics in the bubble. To sum the statistics, because somebody will lose, Daniel, the information and notes that I used. Toronto Raptors, again, offense according to synergy. Toronto third, transitional offense, 14th half-court offense. So better transitional offense than half-court offense. Nick Nurse is 6th if after timeout plays. So 6th in the NBA in scoring after timeout plays. Take a look, Daniel, at after timeout plays. Offense, the big picture I explained. The defense of the Raptors, first overall, second overall, first transitional defense, and weakness, weakness, as I mentioned, couple of things, that we can exploit. Giving up the most threes in the NBA, 41%, that is the weakness, and giving up offensive rebounds. We can attack offensive glass against the Raptors, and they foul more, so we should try to draw fouls, and they are second in turnover percent. Boston Celtics statistics, 5 offense, 5 transitional offense, so we are good transitional offense. They are better offense than us. 11 half-court offense, bad half-court offense. We don't have center. We are third ISO scoring, Kemba and Tatum and Brown, which is understandable. And drops in creation. They are 11th in passes after isolations. So we are not creative team. We are 5th in post-up scoring, but 7th in passing after post-ups. We don't pass enough, Daniel. This is the conclusion. We are 5th in overall pick and roll plays. Tatum and Kemba are the best in those plays. We are 6th in turnover percent, 13.6%. We are good in drawing the turnovers, and 36% of the shoots are for three. In shooting threes, we are 14th. Now, the Celtics defense, 3rd overall defense, 6th transitional defense, 4th half-court defense, overall very solid defense, 20th in post-up defense, and the Raptors are 9th best post-up team. This is the danger. The Raptors 9th best post-up team. But, Daniel, they do not attack the glass, the Raptors, with the frequency. They attack the glass only 7% of possessions. And the Celtics are 20th in defense post. This is the danger for us. The Celtics are 12th in after timeout plays. Stevens and Nick Nurse is 6th in after timeout plays. That is why Nick Nurse is the coach of here, right? And the defense, for transitional overall, large part of this is the turnover battle. So do not allow a lot of shoots to the rim. The Celtics, 33%. This is solid. And I use clean the synergy and stats. All those statistics, Daniel, is showing why the Raptors should win the matchup to conclude. So do you notice something interesting out of my breakdown?
Well, you pretty much reiterated some of the main things we said. The Celtics are going to have a hard time, their work cut out for them when it comes to guarding the bigs in this case. The rebounding will probably get a little bit better in this series because of the fact that Toronto really doesn't crash the boards unless it's the defensive glass. Obviously, offensive rebounding killed us in the series against the 76ers, and we saw a lot of second chance point opportunities for the 76ers, keeping them in these games. That should basically be cleaned up here in round two, but it's not because the Celtics are going to be doing anything different to get their rebounding better. It's because the Toronto Raptors basically are forfeiting the rebounds because they want to basically stop the transition. They do not want to basically risk any odd man, rushes for the Celtics in this case. So I feel pretty much like we said, Igor, you're not going to have much luck with the big man position. You're going to be in a situation where it's going to become a perimeter game for the Celtics in this case. Um, and you're going to be facing another issue of, I guess you could say, um, another issue of while you're playing perimeter, they're going to be going mid-range. They're going to be crashing, the paint. And literally, can you make enough threes to beat out all the twos in this situation? Can you basically be consistent enough where you're shooting 50, 60% maybe from beyond the arc in order to keep up? Because you are not going to get as many layups and dunks as you got in round one when it was only one big man on the floor, because this time you're facing two or three bigs at a time.
Yeah. Like I said, to conclude, the Celtics are good isolational scoring. Like I said, the Celtics are good out pick and roll plays, especially Kemba Walker and John Tatum. On the other hand, we are not attacking the rim. We are not getting free throws much. We should be attacking the offensive glass. That's their weakness. We should get to the rim more and get more throws. This should be our tactics. For the end, now excellent piece from Karalis, really short, Daniel. Jayson Tatum, Luka Doncic is showing the difference between the star and the superstar in back-to-back games. listen carefully, Daniel, and all the dear friends. On the Sunday, we saw the difference between the star player and the superstar, and that's what we have been talking all year long. Jayson Tatum scored 7 points during the 12-0 run to the end of the third of the Celtics closeout win to Philadelphia. Now, 16 of 28 points Tatum came during the 10.5-minute stretch, beginning with about 2 minutes left in the third, that turned the game to Boston's favor. He hits the big shot, back breakers, contested threes, that type of shoots where the other team just shrugs and says nothing you can do about it. And Tatum had 15 rebounds, 2 block shots, and put together that type of performance you want to see from our player. Great. He put together the type of game that gets a guy into all NBA team. Great. That is the guy who gets MVP votes. Then Luka Doncic comes on the floor and shows you what superstar is. The Dallas Mavericks came against the Los Angeles Clippers immediately and followed the Sixers game, and all Doncic did was put up 43 points, 17 rebounds, 13 assist performance while hitting the buzzer beater 3 with his team down 2. Doncic playing on a sprained ankle that nearly kept him out of the game. He didn't just make tough shoots. He manipulated the game. While where Tatum reads the defenses to make passes to set teammates, Doncic puppeteered the Clippers into going where he wanted in order to create the others. There is inherent ease to Doncic's game. You could see immediately when he walked to the league. He feels things that Tatum is still learning. If Jayson Tatum is the piano prodigy who picks up lessons quick, Doncic is wondering who sits to the keyboards and teaches himself play to the ear. And this is not to say Tatum cannot be a step forward to the superstar. Those things he does on the floor are amazing. He still learned a lot over his 3 years in the league, and we're seeing the progression is the culmination of applying the lessons to his game and an incredible amount of work towards improving. But Doncic has it. He is will hunting, solve theorems and other geniuses to work figure it out. His existence doesn't minimalizes the genius of others in the room. It highlights how inexplicable naturally the game comes. Tatum has a lot of growth in him, and we may see the day when Tatum and Doncic are ranked among each other head to head in the finals. There might be a day where they face each other for the MVP trophy. But on Sunday, in back-to-back games, the difference is pretty clear. Tatum might get there somewhere, but Doncic already plays the game in another level. Jayson Tatum is a star player, but Luka Doncic is superstar, and that is the key. That is the key. Daniel, that's all that I got. I think that he explained everything, and no words need to add to that, right?
Nope, he pretty much just reiterated what you and me have said. The superstars in this league are the guys who we see making the biggest impact on their team on a night to night basis. They're the ones carrying their teams to the playoffs and basically putting up a fight, regardless of whether they have other stars on their team or they don't in this situation. We've seen it from LeBron, ladies and gentlemen. Now, again, we're not saying Tatum's not is not one of the upper echelon type players in the league. We're simply saying you cannot put him in that top tier where LeBron, Kawhi, and these other guys are at in this case. Because
Even
those
Doncic.
guys have earned it over their
Even
entire
Doncic.
careers to have that reputation. They're the ones that basically play where you know the league now has said, we can't afford to lose you. We can't afford for another player to foul you hard enough when you get injured because you're too important to our ratings. Luka Doncic is like that. The Mavs lose Luka Doncic, ladies and gentlemen. The Mavs ain't nothing at that point. The Mavs not even they don't even sniff the playoffs. The Celtics, you can say Tatum and Brown, Igor, for now, they're a victim over the fact that there's 4 stars on this team. Tatum will never be
Yeah.
viewed as a superstar so long as he's got Kemba Walker, Gordon Hayward, and Jaylen Brown helping in this case and keeping the stress off of him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's going to take some
Mm-hmm.
time and some years for Tatum to establish himself completely separate from those guys. Tatum's got to do certain things that basically will basically show it's my team. I'm the one that's going to carry us. I'm the one that you should expect basically to hit the big time shots, hit the big time moves, make the big time defensive plays, get the big time calls when it's needed. We saw the first 2 games, Igor. He actually had great performances in this case that you would expect from a superstar, but then he flops in game 3, and then game 4 he bounces back in this case. But like you and me said, does he have that type of performance if Ben Simmons is playing in that first round matchup against the 76ers? Knowing that Simmons has been the key guy to defend him every time the 76ers have basically played him, or played us in this case. So Tatum, no offense, but you pretty much, you're on your way. You're on that path, headed towards the final destination, but you're not there yet. Luka Doncic got there quicker than you because he doesn't have any other big time stars on that team, guys who are viewed as all stars. You're on a team, unfortunately, that has three other guys who can be given the all-star status on any given season at this point, Igor. And so long as you got those guys helping you and making the stress basically go off you, you're not going to basically get to that level as quickly as you want. You know, you got to be willing to go toe to toe. You can't be having Kemba Walker in game 3 and 4 outscoring you and basically being the one to get the job done if you feel you're the top guy. So it looks like we might have lost Igor in this case. But yeah, that's how it's going to come down. Jaylen Brown, he wants to be in that pathway also, ladies and gentlemen. But literally, the situation will not be him getting a superstar status anytime soon. We need to see them having multiple runs in the playoffs if they're going to stay together. If they're actually going to be separate and they're going to basically be on separate teams, then hey, you get there quicker. You think I'm lying, ladies and gentlemen? Look at LeBron James. LeBron James was on a crappy Cleveland Cavalier team where there was no other superstar talent, but he carried that team to the playoffs, carried them deep in this case to the playoffs. And that's how he got that status of superstar, that it took only one man to get the job done. Tatum and Brown, like we said, you lose this round to the Toronto Raptors, and there's 3 stars now. And this time you ain't got no Kyrie Irving to blame in this situation. Y'all ain't got Al Horford. Y'all don't have Marcus Morris. You don't have Aaron Baines. You lose in round 2 here to the Toronto Raptors, then technically you can't have that superstar status. You're not even close at that point. If 3 stars is still not enough, 3 stars who you can say they gel together perfectly. The team it's got unity in this situation. Whether you want to talk about unity in the locker room because now everybody knows what the pecking order is, and they're all satisfied because obviously last year they didn't want to. Guys like Tatum and Brown didn't want to accept Kyrie and Horford being ahead of them, and Gordon Hayward. Well, now you're ahead, Tatum and Brown. You're the top guys on the team at this point. And if you still can't win with you, Brown, and Kemba when it's time to face the really top teams in this league, then you're not superstars. Luka Doncic may not be able to get his Mavs team basically past round 1 in this case because of the fact that technically it's only him as the only star, and that's really it. You know, Porzingis maybe you could say is the second star, but that's really it. And you're facing Kawhi Leonard and the Clippers, a team that everybody was expecting to be the NBA champions this year. But you can't get past round 2, it's over. I do not want to hear any more from people saying Tatum and Brown are superstars. You got to give them a few more years before we start basically talking about them being up there. You want to put them basically on tier three, stars, all stars in this case. Okay, maybe it looks like we got Igor back. You want to put them on level two in this case, then fine. In this situation, um, but you damn sure are not going to be in a situation where you're viewed as superstars if you don't get past round two.
Thank you, Daniel. And again, to reiterate, we are not shooting at you, Jayson Tatum, and Daniel. He has years to prove it. But the problem is, does Boston has years to wait 5 or 6 until Brown and Tatum become elite? Because we don't want the two of them to be like good guys, all-star duo, all NBA duo that will reach the Eastern Conference Finals, maybe occasionally some finals and nothing else. I have the feelings that as long as they have the other top 10 stars in the league ahead of them at the Eastern Conference, we will hit the brick wall every single time, just like we did the last 10 years since 2010 until 2020 in the East. We pass every single team until we get to LeBron and Cavaliers, and then we hit the wall. Now we have Giannis, and maybe he's not LeBron. Maybe we will defeat him. But, only way, there are two ways the Celtics to win the title. One, the Tatum and Brown to elevate the game and to become the best players in the Eastern Conference, okay? To surpass Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Siakam, Van Vliet, Jimmy Butler, everybody else, TJ Warren, the guys from Indiana. This is one way. And the other way, every single star to quit the league from the East or to go to the West, which is pretty much impossible, Daniel. So my view is the only way to the title. Brown and Tatum need to elevate and to improve, just like Karali said, in order the Celtics to have the chance to win something in the next 5 years. Is this possible? Yes, it is. Would I bet on that? No.
Well, Igor, and I think the bigger question for Celtic fans is this, and this is the God honest truth, ladies and gentlemen. Please, when I say this, think of somebody from a neutral standpoint. Don't think with your Celtics caps on. Think as somebody from a neutral standpoint and think of the situation of what the evidence has showed us over all these years. Do you truly trust Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum to stay here for the long haul? That's the key. Think about it, Igor.
Yes.
LeBron James right now, like you said, is the top guy in this league, but his career is coming to an end. And once LeBron leaves, ladies and gentlemen, what does that mean for the Los Angeles Lakers financially?
Yes.
All the money now is available. All the money now is available to throw it into the face of whoever it is you want. And if I'm correct, and I know I am, we do have young players in this case who basically, worship Lakers legend Kobe Bryant.
Yes.
In this case, ladies and gentlemen, if they have to, if those players who have a chance to decide, do I stay in Boston, a market where pretty much only the money I get from the Celtics will be basically what I get. I'm not really going to get anything else. I'm not really going to be involved in many commercials or in going on TV shows and all that. Or do I go to basically play for the same
money,
team?
beaches, movies, Hollywood?
Exactly. Or do I go play for the same team that my childhood hero basically played for and get the same benefits I'm getting here in Boston right now, but then all the other extra benefits on top of it. I go to a place where players want to play because other than Kemba Walker, Igor, when have we ever heard of another big time free agent coming to Boston in this case? So,
And let me just jump here. I said, and I shocked the Celtics fans yesterday in comments that after they gave the treatment to Kyrie Irving, Marcus Morris, Baines, and Al Horford and Terry Rozier, like last year, you cannot expect any of the top 12 stars to join Boston anytime soon because the players talk, because they're all members of national team of America, because they're all stars, and because they recruit each others. And do you think that Al Horford and Kyrie Irving will say positive and about the Celtics? I really don't.
no,
And this is what the fans do not get it.
yeah, well, that's another thing. Unfortunately, you're in a position where also one superstar, Igor, isn't enough to win an NBA championship in this era of the NBA. It's the truth. You need two to four players basically to come together, and that's what these superstar players want. They all want to join up on the same team to basically go the route of increasing their chance. If it wasn't for the fact that you got the NBA salary cap in this case and the rules that kind of make it difficult for too many guys to come together, I wouldn't be surprised if you see all these guys on the same team. You know, if there was no salary cap whatsoever, and as long as you can afford them, you go ahead and you get them. I wouldn't be surprised to see LeBron and get Kyrie, Durant, and all of them showing up on the same team because they would know that they would know the championship is a guarantee at that point. So you're not going to get that happening here in Boston, ladies and gentlemen. The treatment you gave to our former stars in this situation is basically now going to come back to bite you in the behind. Unless Tatum and Brown truly show that they are now the top dogs, because right now, Giannis, Igor, from what they say, if the Milwaukee Bucks don't make it out of the East or don't win a championship, he could potentially look to go elsewhere. But if that's the case, the next team to step up and really be the top dogs in the East are the ones in Brooklyn, Kevin Durant and Kyrie, where they got two superstars already on that roster. At that point, ladies and gentlemen, if I'm an NBA player, who am I going to choose to go and join? Do I go to
Do
New
not
York?
forget Miami.
Yeah,
Do not forget Miami.
yeah,
One
but
star away from
yeah,
contendership.
but do I go to New York and basically play in Brooklyn with Durant and Kyrie, sacrifice a little bit of money, but to increase my chance
Or
for a
to go
championship? Or
to
do I go to
Miami, or
or
to
to
go to
Miami,
Miami to
where
play
right
with
now
Jimmy Butler,
everybody
with
seems to be,
Dragic,
yeah,
Tyler Hero,
exactly.
Bam Adebayo.
Or do I go to Boston, where basically they have young players in this case? They got a smart GM, a smart coach in this situation. But if I show up, I'm possibly the top guy on that team now, and I have a few
But
decent stars, but no
10
superstars.
years, we develop players and cannot get into the NBA Finals.
Exactly.
10
So
years.
that's where you have to worry, ladies and gentlemen. If you basically develop Tatum and Brown, ain't no guarantees. Loyalty in they ain't no loyalty anymore in sports. That's the honest
Absolutely.
truth in this case. I don't care what
Yep.
sport you're talking about. Maybe the closest thing you have is in hockey, where some of these guys like say Zdeno Chara and Patrice Bergeron, guys like that who have been with their teams long, that's probably the closest you get it. But there damn sure is no loyalty in the NBA in this case. And at some point,
If we
it's going to
if
get
we
to,
didn't learn if we didn't learn that from Kyrie, then I don't know.
well,
We are
yeah,
dumb.
if you haven't learned it from Kyrie, if you haven't learned it from LeBron, if you haven't learned it from Kawhi,
Durant.
yeah, Durant, if you haven't learned it from those guys, then obviously you've had your head head under a rock the last, decade or so in this
Yeah,
case,
yeah.
or you're just in denial. But there is no loyalty. You can offer these guys the maximum money, but there ain't no guarantee that a fifth year in extra money is going to be enough for them to say, let me stay here when I could go to another major market and play for another team.
Kyrie
To
took
pair me with
less money
somebody
to
else.
go to Brooklyn.
Yeah,
Kyrie took less money to
yeah.
go to Brooklyn.
LeBron took less money to go to Miami, took less money to go back to Cleveland, took less money to go to the Lakers in this case
Yep.
than what he could have
Yes.
gotten to stay where he was currently at. So Igor, that's my biggest concern in this situation.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Tatum and
Yes. Yes.
Brown,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, by the time they become prime and ready to go, ain't no guarantee they're going to want to stay in Boston in this case. Because obviously, you're going to have every other team in the league wanting to basically get them in this situation. Right now, the Clippers, Paul George isn't living up to his reputation with the Clippers in these playoffs. Many people are blaming him for the Clippers being, put in that tight spot right now, tied 2-2, I believe it is. What happens with the Clippers? Ultimately, it could be where maybe Paul George is given the boot and your guys are basically being asked to come play for the Clippers and play with Doc Rivers in this case. So don't be, as I say, don't be catching your chicks before they hatch in this situation, ladies and gentlemen. Don't be guaranteeing something that you know for a fact you can't guarantee. Give these guys, the right treatment in this situation and hope. But for a damn fact, you cannot guarantee a damn thing when it comes to them staying in Boston once the Knicks, the Nets, the Heat, the Lakers, and the Clippers all get that opportunity to start trying to give them money. And at that point, those teams have more to offer than you do because of the market you're in. That, Igor, to me, in my opinion, I would hate to see it happen. Those guys leave in one way, but I would almost laugh at Celtic fans in another. The same Celtic fans that want to put them right now in the top echelon of the league. What happens if they do? They do give you a middle finger and decide basically to walk away and say I'm going somewhere else
Absolutely.
because I want to
It would be
basically
disaster.
I want to be the next Kobe Bryant running things in Los Angeles for the Lakers in this case.
Yes, sir.
Or I want to be the next Dwayne Wade running things down in Miami to basically get them going in the right direction, Or I want to follow in the pathway of Patrick Ewing or something like that in New York. What you gonna say at that point? Are you now gonna give those guys the same rotten treatment that you went giving Kyrie and Horford last season? And then at that point, what happens? You're just gonna screw yourself. Where at that point, ain't nobody else gonna want to come, especially players in this case that will realize that you've had two sets of stars and pretty much you've disrespected each and every one. So enjoy it while
Yes.
you can in this situation. But the last time we saw guys who were truly loyal to this Celtic franchise, you were talking Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened? We let those two go to start the transition to basically do a fast rebuild. It's got us to where we're going now, but remember, that rebuild doesn't happen unless Garnett and Paul Pierce are willing to accept you sending them away. Garnett and Pierce made a sacrifice to make sure your future would basically be set, which is why those two continue to get the respect they deserve from Celtic fans. But the guys you got right now, until we actually see them tell the Lakers, screw you, I'm not going to Los Angeles, I'm staying in Boston. Until we see that actually happen, which who knows, Igor? Maybe with Tatum it could happen as soon as this summer. Jaylen Brown was not offered nothing from any of these other teams, these big markets, because all of them have their stars already established. But I say in a few years, Igor, once these teams finally have their stars having to walk away because they're too old or, they clear up the cap space available, let's see what happens at that point in this situation. Let's see what happens at that point. If our guys give them the thumbs down after being offered a max contract somewhere else, well, then those guys will prove Boston is where they want to be for the long run. But until they actually have to face that challenge, ladies and gentlemen, don't be guaranteeing it because you never know what happens without the evidence actually proving it.
We have a couple. I have the last information of the show. It was the great show. I think the best possible preview. You should definitely watch it if you're the Celtics fan. Despite current and projected revenue losses impacted by COVID-19, and despite NBA and NBA Player Association revenue split, there is growing optimism that the sides can reach agreement on temporary changes to the CBA and agreeing on the next salary cap that would preclude the need to enact the nuclear option of terminating CBA. In other words, there may be no, CBA problems. ESPN sources for the second time, NBA and NBA Player Association agreed to push back 60-day window that preserves right of each side to terminate the collective bargaining agreement in the wake of pandemic. The new negotiating deadline for the 2020-21 season is October 15th. Those are the good news, Daniel. We may not have the problem after all. That was all. Again, Thursday, 27th August, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, according to our sources, Daniel. The first game, then Saturday, 29th, I think the same time probably, but you will be informed. Stay with us. Watch our show recapping the game one of the Raptors Celtics and stay with us. This was the chat number 54, if I'm correct. Daniel and Igor are wishing you good night and go Celtics beat the Raptors. Daniel?
Yep. So we'll see you all for our next radio show. In this case, will be Friday night after Game One, and hopefully we have a good performance from the Celtics in Game One Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening.
Cut.